In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to create a rose using acrylic paints. To help you out, I've created a free template that you can use to create the outline of your rose. I trace mine directly from my MacBook screen, but you could print yours out and trace using tracing paper. The template is totally free and can be found in the link in the description below. I'm using paper that is 19 by 19 centimeters in size, with a 1 centimeter masking taped border. Make sure your masking tape isn't too sticky before you put it onto your paper, otherwise you'll have a disaster later on. Also, if you have a frame for your wall in mind, you want to consider the size of your paper. I only use 2 brushes for this tutorial, a small rounded tip brush and a medium-sized flat-headed brush. The colours I used were yellow, blue, red, magenta, which might be called primary red in your acrylic pack, and white. I started by creating a turquoise colour for the background. For this, I mixed together blue, white, and a little bit of yellow. Make sure there isn't too much paint on your brush before you begin. Then I simply outlined the shape of the rose. Try and use longer brush strokes where you can to gain a nice neat edge. Next, I took the flat-headed brush and filled in the gaps. You'll see that I used shorter brush strokes and added more white in areas. This is because I didn't want the background to be completely flat. However, if you prefer the look of a block colour, then go for it. The first rose petal I tackled is this one here. So you can see it starts off dark within the rose and then gets lighter as it goes outwards. I mix red with blue to create a dark reddy purple colour. And then looking at the photograph, started painting the shape of the dark patch. I then went in with the red and overlapped it with the purple colour. What you're going to want to do is these two colours to blend together, so not only do you want to overlap them, but then I find it easier to use small circular motions to make that blend even better. You can see I found another dark patch there, so I repeated the process. To finish this petal off, I mixed white with red, probably more red than white actually, and completed the petal. When blending these colours together, you do have to work quite quickly because acrylic paint is very fast drying, so just bear that in mind. Using the same colours, I repeated the process for these 3 petals here. Now this section underneath is quite a dull colour, so I used a purple that I've created previously and added a little bit of white with it and placed that underneath. I also blended that in with a dusty pink colour, which is red and white mixed with the purple. Red on the edge, blend that in, and then I went in with a darker purple just to kind of bring a shadow underneath, otherwise it'll be completely flat. You can see that I've just added a little white highlight there as well. Now on to these pinker petals. For this, all I used was magenta and white. In lots of the acrylic starter packs, I've seen that they don't include magenta, and it's a really useful colour to have, so I've put a link below to a good starter set that you might be interested in. On this petal, I started with a lighter tone first, which is just white on its own. As the petal goes upwards, you can see I gradually add more magenta. And then for the final edge, I used magenta on its own. Using the same colours, I then focused on the central part of the rose. Obviously this part of the rose is very important because that's where your eye gets drawn. So make sure your brush strokes are smaller in this area and add as much detail as possible. You can see that I've added red into the back petals. That's because I want the central part to stand out and not blur into one. You will want to use the darker purple you created earlier for the darkest areas. Otherwise, it's just going to fade into a medium light blur. Then a reddy pink colour for the back petal. When you're painting, always look for where the light and dark should be, because that's what's going to make the rose look three-dimensional. Otherwise it's just going to look flat. For this underneath section, I used magenta and white and then faded it into the dusty purple colour I created earlier on. For the stem, I mixed blue and yellow together to create green. It's a dark green, so I added more blue than yellow. For the leaves, I created a lighter green, so more yellow than blue, and I started with that and faded it into the darker green. You can see that there are hints of green on these underneath petals, so using yellow, white and a light green I've already created, I dry brushed the same colour onto the petals. Dry brushing means zero water, so if you haven't done this before, start with a little bit of paint and build it up. Now for the best part, the finishing touches. Using white, I go in and create a highlight on some of the edges of the petals and leaves. And there you have my final piece. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have followed and painted alongside me, please let me know how you got on by leaving a comment. Also, don't forget the free template is ready for you to use down in the description. Enjoy!